I'm just going to keep on working as hard as I can around the priorities that the American people care about. And I think it's legitimate for them to expect me to have to win back some credibility on this health care law in particular, and on a whole range of these issues in general.
Well, the president back in November acknowledging he had a pretty rough 2013, but hey, it's a new year, 2014. And the president is looking to make a comeback. Can he do it? Is he equipped to do it? Mary Catherine Ham is editor-at-large of HotAir.com and a Fox News contributor. Jeff Johnson is a social and political commentator. Thank you both for being with us. Mary Catherine, you know, here's the title of an article that's making the rounds today. Management experts knock Obama. I mean, the knock on him has really been his resume and thus experience is very thin. Community organizer, taught a law school class. You know, he was a senator for a nanosecond. And the claim is that he just doesn't have the skill set nor the executive experience that would make him competent to govern. Is that fair or unfair?
Well, first of all, we all make resolutions, so we'll see what 2014 looks like. A lot of our resolutions fall through, so we'll see what it looks like for Obama as well. Look, I think it's interesting to watch what were criticisms of Obama 4 years ago about Obama and Obamacare itself become part of the mainstream media's discussion now that the rubber has really hit the road on Obamacare. And you see that actual lack of managerial experience or executive experience can make a difference in how these policies work. I think David Gergen, no right-wing hero, in the Politico piece says it best, and I'm paraphrasing, but he says, look, there's a lot of emphasis on passing a law, sort of high-fiving and patting our backs for doing something good and helping people, but there's not as much emphasis on executing that law. That's what we've seen here. It was a criticism of Obama when he came into the White House, and it turns out that it actually matters in people's lives when they try to do these giant, complicated things. And turns out they can't do them.
Congress passes laws, and the executive branch enforces those laws. They execute those laws. You know, Jeff, one of the more common criticisms of the president is he's very aloof toward Congress. He is utterly uncommunicative. He and his staff have little or no contact with Congress, even the Democratic leaders there. Do you think that's going to change this year? He will more actively engage the other branch of government, or is it, you know, just too late and out of character for him?
Well, I think we've seen in the last 2 years a push in the direction for there to be more communication. I think that he moved away from attempting to push meetings with just congressional leaders and then pushing to create relationships with congressional members. And the media has covered that. And so I don't think that that's a new thing. I do think that going into these last few years of his second term, we're going to see more and more of that kind of communication being more effective, because the communication with party leaders wasn't doing what I think it needed to do for either side.
Yeah. You know, all the broken promises has led in the latest polling data, Mary Catherine, to the conclusion a majority of Americans think he's dishonest and untrustworthy. I mean, once you lose the consent to govern, it's hard to govern. Has he squandered and abused the public's trust?
Well, I mean, I think the fact that you can keep your plan if you want to keep your plan was the lie of the year, even by PolitiFact, who had formally called it true, is evidence that this is really hitting people, and they're noticing that these two things are not lining up. And this is the problem. If he wants to have a better year by communicating more, which I think could help with individual congressional members if he wanted to do that, you have to deal with the fact that when he says things, people think, are you going to follow through on this? Are you capable of following through on this, or are you telling me the truth? And his go-to approach to pivoting or to making turning over a new leaf for himself is to give a big speech. I'm sure he'll try that, but the American people have heard a lot of big speeches from him, including many with the lie of the year in it. So they think to themselves, why am I supposed to believe you this time? And that's a problem for him.
Jeff?
Yeah, but let's also deal with the reality, because I think one of the problems with the Politico piece is that it deals with this whole notion of, well, let me finish, because it deals with the reality of managing within a corporate space. That piece doesn't at all deal with the realities of a political environment. It doesn't deal with the fact that a corporate CEO doesn't have to deal with a board of directors who in many cases doesn't want the same thing at all that he or she wants. And so President Obama clearly has made some mistakes. The administration has admittedly made mistakes, not just as it relates to Obamacare, but in other aspects of the administration. But let's also deal with the reality that there is a Congress that fights tooth and nail at every step against almost everything this president does. And in no corporate environment is there a CEO, unless they're under a hostile takeover, is going to have to deal with that same reality.
Catherine, you know, I mean, very accomplished American presidents that were Democrats, accomplished in terms of legislation, were Bill Clinton, Lyndon Johnson, and these guys really engaged Congress. I mean, Lyndon Johnson was famous for twisting arms and bending ears. And, you know, Bill Clinton would be on the phone in the middle of the night to congressional leaders. I mean, he was constantly talking to them and trying to persuade them. This president never does that. So, again, he doesn't even socialize with these people. And, you know, in Washington, all of that counts.
Well, yeah, I think that's true. And I think Jeff is exactly right that this is different than a corporate environment. But he didn't run to be a CEO. He ran to be president. All presidents have had Congresses. All presidents have had to deal with
no debate
politics.
at all about that.
That's part of the deal. I know that Democrats think this is so much worse, even though I don't buy that, especially during the Bush years, that the opposition is worse now. But they have to deal with this. It's part of the situation. And he has not put his mind to doing that. He has not dealt with the realities of that. He has not worked on convincing
Jeff, 20
people.
seconds. I'm out of time. Go ahead and respond.
This president, I think, came into office saying that he wanted to do things differently. He attempted to engage both sides of the aisle and in many cases was shown a level of disrespect that most presidents haven't been. But at the end of the day, I think we're seeing a different kind of Republican Party that isn't willing to deal make as much as the ones that Clinton saw in particular.
And we're seeing a president who's not very good at enacting laws
Jeff
and then ignores them when he can't.
Mary Catherine Ham, good to see you both. Thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you.